Kash Patel's run may have just hit the point of no return. What unfolded inside the sealed hallways of FBI headquarters over the past 48 hours didn't simply rattle Washington's political class. It ripped through the Capitol like a controlled explosion planted at the heart of America's national security machine. The aftershocks are still moving outward. Inside the intelligence world, people who normally see danger coming from miles away were caught completely off guard. Not like this. Not this precise. Not this perfectly timed. And certainly not with a move so deliberate it looked less like a decision and more like a surgical strike aimed straight at the officials who carried some of the most volatile secrets tied to the most powerful figure in the country. The pressure around Kash Patel isn't building anymore. It's already sealed shut. The real question now, the one whispered in secure offices and late-night calls, is how many others are about to be dragged into the collapse with him. Here's the part that's no longer rumor. Congressional leadership, driven by Representative Grace Ming, has triggered a full-scale investigation into FBI Director Kash Patel. This isn't political theater, not a polite inquiry, not a symbolic complaint. Lawmakers have initiated a subpoena-powered congressional probe aimed directly at the sitting head of the most formidable law enforcement agency on the planet. And the reason for that sudden escalation has veteran intelligence officers pacing through empty parking garages in the middle of the night, making calls they never expected to make. Because during the last 2 weeks, while most of Washington assumed Patel was quietly reshuffling departments, something else was happening entirely out of sight. He didn't just adjust the Bureau's structure. He went straight into one of the most protected, most classified operational units inside the FBI and dismantled it piece by piece. The division is known internally as CI-12, the Bureau's premier counterintelligence team focused on the Middle East. Then came the unthinkable move. Every agent inside that unit was removed. Not gradually, not selectively. All of them, gone. The firings happened fast, coordinated, and executed with such cold precision that intelligence insiders are now describing it as the unmistakable move of someone who understood exactly what he was tearing apart and did it anyway. And then there's the timing. The timing is the detail that makes this entire story feel almost unreal, yet it's the piece most outlets are barely mentioning. Because just as American forces across the Middle East shifted into heightened readiness, just as carrier strike groups started moving and Pentagon officials began briefing the White House about potential escalation, at that exact same moment something extraordinary was happening back in Washington. The agents who had spent years mapping Iran's covert networks operating inside the United States were suddenly being pushed out. The specialists who knew Hezbollah's financial pipelines down to the smallest detail were escorted out of their offices. The operatives trained to recognize hostile foreign intelligence officers stepping off flights at Dulles were abruptly cut off. They weren't transferred. They weren't quietly retired. They were terminated. Security clearances frozen. Years of intelligence locked into cardboard boxes and carried out of the building. Just like that, an entire brain trust of counterintelligence vanished from the Bureau overnight. And just like that, the nation those agents had spent their entire lives defending was left staring into a dangerous vacuum at the worst possible moment. Inside FBI headquarters, the mood has shifted from quiet confusion to something far darker. Sources within the Bureau, people who have devoted 30 years to intelligence work, people who survived the political crossfire of multiple administrations, are describing a level of internal alarm that almost never surfaces in public. These are professionals trained not to panic under any circumstance. Yet, right now, some of the calmest figures in the intelligence world are openly shaken. Senior officials who have navigated real national security emergencies are privately telling colleagues that what Kash Patel just carried out feels fundamentally different from anything they've witnessed before. Because this time the danger isn't coming from abroad. It isn't a foreign intelligence service, a terrorist organization, or a sophisticated cyber attack targeting American systems. The perceived threat is originating from the director's own office. And when the threat appears to be coming from inside the building itself, the playbook suddenly disappears. There's no emergency manual for that scenario. No contingency plan. Just exposure and uncertainty. But there's one detail, one devastating piece of information that transforms this story from a controversial leadership decision into something prosecutors are now studying with intense focus. Every agent removed from CI-12 had something very specific in common. Each one had previously been involved in an investigation into Donald Trump's handling of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. Not a majority, not several, every single one of them. These weren't randomly selected employees caught in a routine shakeup. They weren't casualties of some broad ideological sweep through the Bureau. These were the exact investigators who had physically handled the evidence. The people who cataloged the materials, tracked the chain of custody, analyzed sensitive files, and in some cases gave sworn testimony about what had been discovered inside that Florida storage room. They were the individuals who could still connect threads of evidence that prosecutors haven't fully pieced together. The living memory of the investigation. And that memory, according to critics, vanished overnight. The man responsible for the decision, Kash Patel, was personally championed by Donald Trump and installed at the helm of the FBI despite fierce resistance from many senior intelligence officials. Now, with a single coordinated action, the very agents tied to that classified documents probe have been erased from the Bureau's most critical Middle East counterintelligence unit. And the timing could not be more unsettling. The firings happened just days before tensions in the Middle East pushed American forces into a heightened military posture. That overlap is now fueling the central question echoing through Washington. Was this simply a purge meant to shield a former president from the long shadow of a federal investigation? Or was it something even more alarming? A calculated move that stripped the United States of key intelligence expertise on Middle Eastern threats precisely as those threats were intensifying, leaving no institutional memory capable of tying future failures back to the Mar-a-Lago investigation? Either explanation carries enormous consequences, and both possibilities are now under active scrutiny on Capitol Hill. Representative Grace Meng has put those questions directly into the congressional record. This isn't speculation whispered on cable news. Her concerns appear in formal letters issued under the authority of Congress, backed by subpoena power. The investigation she launched is already expanding beyond a single committee. According to sources on Capitol Hill, multiple committee chairs have begun quietly coordinating their inquiries, sharing personnel records, cross-checking timelines, and reconstructing the exact sequence of events. They're asking one specific question above all. When did Patel sign those termination orders? And how does that moment line up with the Pentagon's decision to place U.S. forces on heightened alert in the Middle East? And the timeline emerging from that investigation is raising even more alarms. According to one senior congressional staffer who spoke privately late last night, the sequence of events is disturbingly clear. The firings did not occur after news of the military buildup became public. They didn't even coincide with the escalation announcement. They happened before it. Patel's move against CI-12 occurred while the Middle East operation was still classified. And if that timeline holds, it means something that investigators are now struggling to ignore. Whoever authorized the purge had advance awareness that military escalation was coming. They knew tensions were about to surge. And in that exact window, the nation's most specialized Middle East counterintelligence team was dismantled. Now here's the part of the story that most headlines are getting completely wrong because they keep reducing CI-12 to a sterile acronym. Inside the FBI, CI-12 was never just another department code. It represented something far more critical. The Bureau's Middle East Counterintelligence Division was not a group of analysts sitting behind desks reviewing public reports. This was one of the most specialized operational teams inside the entire intelligence apparatus. Their mission focused on state-sponsored espionage, the recruitment and management of foreign assets, the detection of hostile intelligence penetrations, and the disruption of covert threats linked specifically to Iran, its proxy organizations, and allied state actors operating in the shadows. The agents inside CI-12 were not passive observers. They ran human intelligence networks. They cultivated sources buried deep inside foreign power structures. Some of those relationships took years to establish. Others took decades of careful trust building with individuals positioned within hostile intelligence environments. Those sources fed the United States real-time warnings about potential threats, warnings tied to American diplomats overseas, military installations abroad, and even political institutions here at home. And that's the critical reality most people outside the intelligence world don't immediately understand. When you remove a CI-12 agent, you aren't just losing a federal employee. You are severing an entire web of human intelligence connections tied directly to that person. Every confidential source they spent years cultivating disappears with them. Every fragile relationship built in high-risk environments collapses overnight. Those networks don't neatly transfer to a replacement agent. They don't live safely inside classified databases waiting to be reassigned. They vanish because those sources trusted one specific individual, and that individual is suddenly gone. Inside intelligence circles, officials aren't discussing this situation in cautious or technical language. The warnings are blunt. Some are even alarming. One former senior counterintelligence official spoke to reporters late last night and used a phrase that has already echoed through security briefings across Washington. We are functionally blind. Not weakened, not partially compromised, blind. And that statement lands at an especially dangerous moment. American military assets are currently repositioning across the Middle East, a move that could trigger direct confrontation with Iranian-backed forces in several regions at once. Yet the Bureau's ability to detect or disrupt Iranian intelligence operations inside the United States, Operation CI-12 was specifically built to monitor, has now been dismantled by the very official responsible for safeguarding against that threat. Sooner rather than later, Kash Patel will have to sit before Congress and explain how this happened. Not behind closed doors. Not through carefully worded statements. Under oath, on the record, with cameras running and investigators already holding documents his legal team may not have fully reviewed yet. And this is where the situation becomes dangerously complicated for him. Because every explanation available carries its own risks. If Patel claims the firings were based on poor performance, lawmakers will demand the documentation supporting that claim. Those records would have to show legitimate evaluations and disciplinary histories. But even if such paperwork exists, it will not explain why every single agent removed shares the same previous assignment, the classified documents investigation involving Mar-a-Lago. If he argues the firings were part of a structural reorganization, Congress will request the reorganization plan itself, the official proposal he would have needed to approve, date, and file before issuing termination notices. And if no such plan exists in that form, the explanation begins to collapse the moment investigators look at it. If Patel insists the timing was simply coincidence, he would be asking congressional oversight committees to believe that the director of the FBI accidentally dismantled the nation's most critical Middle East counterintelligence unit just 48 hours before a major military escalation in that exact region without recognizing the implications. That argument would face immediate scrutiny, because timelines leave evidence, documents leave evidence, and investigators already have both, which brings everything back to the one detail no explanation has managed to erase. Every single agent dismissed from CI-12 shares the same piece of professional history. They all worked on the investigation into the classified materials recovered from Mar-a-Lago. And that investigation leads directly to the most powerful office in the United States. What makes the upcoming congressional hearing potentially catastrophic for Kash Patel isn't just the firings themselves, it's the paper trail forming around them. Investigators are no longer working with rumors or scattered complaints. They now have the termination notices. They have the agent's full personnel records. They have assignment histories stretching back years. And most importantly, they have timelines. Every major step in the classified documents investigation has been mapped against the exact dates Patel signed each termination order. According to multiple sources familiar with preliminary materials assembled by committee staff, the pattern emerging from those timelines is almost disturbingly precise. It's the kind of pattern that forces investigators to stop asking if something happened and start asking why. Agents with the deepest operational knowledge of the Mar-a-Lago document transfers were the first to go. Then came the investigators most recently tied to grand jury proceedings connected to that case. And finally, the agents identified inside internal bureau records as potential witnesses if the investigation were ever revived or expanded were dismissed last. Step by step, layer by layer. That sequence doesn't look like a routine personnel move. It looks like a list, executed methodically, using the full authority of the FBI Director's Office. The political shockwave surrounding Patel has hit even some of his closest allies inside the administration by surprise. Just 3 days ago, sympathetic media outlets were portraying him as a bold reformer. The narrative framed him as a decisive leader willing to dismantle bureaucratic resistance and reshape the FBI according to the president's agenda. That storyline has now collapsed under the weight of new questions. Because the focus has shifted. This is no longer a debate about reform or loyalty. The question now confronting Washington is far more explosive. Did the director of the FBI knowingly weaken the country's national security apparatus in order to remove the very investigators capable of giving damaging testimony in a federal probe tied to the president? That question now carries the force of congressional subpoenas. And if Patel answers it poorly under oath, the consequences could reach far beyond political embarrassment. Neither executive privilege arguments, nor discussions about pardons, nor the protective machinery of partisan politics can fully contain the fallout of testimony delivered under oath to Congress. Meanwhile, pressure is building faster than Patel's legal team appears able to contain. The investigation underway on Capitol Hill is not symbolic. Multiple committees are coordinating their inquiries. Veteran intelligence officials, people who spent decades refusing to speak publicly about internal operations, are quietly cooperating because they believe the situation has crossed a line they can't ignore. And the timeline investigators are assembling continues to work against the director. Every hour that passes without a clear, documented explanation for why every single Mar-a-Lago investigator was removed from the Bureau's most sensitive Middle East counterintelligence unit, just before tensions in that region exploded, adds weight to the simplest interpretation. That interpretation is already circulating across Washington. Patel didn't just remove staff. He removed witnesses. He dismantled a layer of institutional protection. And in doing so, critics argue, he left the country vulnerable to foreign intelligence threats at exactly the wrong moment. The implication behind that theory is even more explosive, that the purge wasn't random at all, that it served a purpose. And that purpose, investigators believe, may have been protecting someone. That is the case Congress is now methodically assembling through documents, testimony, and subpoenaed records. The coming hearing will be the first time Kash Patel must answer those questions directly, under oath, with investigators already holding the evidence. What happens in that room could define the largest political scandal of this administration, or it could trigger a chain reaction far bigger than one director, one purge, or one late-night firing order. The agents are gone. The intelligence networks they built may never be recovered. But the evidence trail, the documents, the dates, the personnel files, and the witnesses who watched it unfold remains intact. And every one of those pieces now points directly toward the office of the FBI director. This story isn't ending. If anything, it has only just reached the moment where it becomes impossible to look away.